Until the 1950s, it was a commonly held belief that the Romans got no further southwest in their domination of Britain than Exeter. But here on the hill above the village of Calstock, in the heart of East Cornwall's Tamar Valley, archaeologists found evidence for around 3 decades of Roman occupation. In October 2011, 20 volunteers joined archaeologists on a dig organised by the Tamar Valley Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, supported by the Heritage Lottery Fund. Local people had the opportunity to learn hands-on archaeological skills, including excavation and recording. But if nobody thought there were any Roman settlements in the area, how did archaeologists know to dig here? The discovery was made quite by accident. In 2007, archaeologists from the University of Exeter came to Calstock looking for a 14th century administrative centre, or curia, associated with the royal silver mines across the River Tamar on the Beer Peninsula. Instead, they made a remarkable discovery: a Roman fort large enough to house 500 soldiers. The Crown silver mines on the Beer Peninsula, first recorded in 1292, are thought to be the earliest true silver mines in Britain, and the village of Beer Alston the first purpose-built mining town in the country. Research into the mining and its impact on the historic landscape of the Beer Peninsula revealed documentary evidence for an administrative centre in Calstock. It contained a refinery, smelting furnaces, a smithy, stables, a large hall for the mining officers, and records of smelting taking place at the old castle or fort. As little evidence of medieval smelting sites survives, Calstock presented the best chance of identifying such a site. In 2006, a geophysical investigation was performed. No evidence for smelting was found, but the results showed part of a circular earthwork bank or wall. This mysterious and previously unknown feature was resurveyed in 2007 and clearly revealed the ramparts and ditches of a Roman fort. This would have been a strategic location for the Roman army, providing views up and down the river and located between its highest navigable reach and lowest fording point. With further surveying, it was estimated that the Roman fort was probably the size of 3 football pitches. Excavation and geophysical survey over the following few years revealed evidence of occupation from the Bronze Age through the late Iron Age to the arrival of the Roman army in around 50 AD. The army only stayed for around 30 years, but settlement of the area continued late into the 11th century. The construction of St Andrew's Church began in the 14th century, establishing the character of the hilltop as we know it today. In 2010, the Tamar Valley Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty secured funding from the Heritage Lottery Fund for a heritage project in Calstock Parish, a major part of which was to be a community archaeological dig. Volunteers from within the valley and further afield signed up to be trained in archaeological skills by the archaeology team from the University of Exeter. This excavation pushed the date of settlement on Church Hill back to prehistory, with the discovery of late Neolithic or early Bronze Age pottery, a rarity in the Tamar Valley. The only comparable example was found to the west of here at Harrowbarrow. This suggests that there was probably activity on Church Hill as far back as 3000 BC. At the end of the fortnight's dig, Chris Smart from the University of Exeter was interviewed by the Tamar Valley AOMB's Rosemary Teverson.
So Chris, it's near the end of the second week at this community dig near the Roman fort at Calstock. What did you originally set out to find here?
Well, we've already conducted extensive geophysical surveys so we can see the range of potential features that are beneath the ground, and we wanted to open up 2 areas to really test what these were, to ascertain their date and their kind of function. The big area here behind us was intended to look at a much larger enclosure that surrounds the fort. It appears to be Roman in date, military pottery from within, but also it looked like the road exiting the east gate of the fort may either cross or be cut by this ditch, so we wanted to really ascertain which came first, the fort and road or this larger enclosure ditch. As it's turned out, the The road itself appears to have been completely lost. There's no trace of any metalling, but we do have a post-medieval hedge bank which has utilised this exact same axis as we would expect the Roman road to have taken. So perhaps when the boundary was set out in the 17th, 18th century, there was an earthwork relating to a Roman route at that time that this post-medieval boundary is referencing.
So any real surprises so far?
Oh, the biggest surprise was that the features that we saw as the geophysical anomalies weren't in fact Roman. They were post-medieval hedge bank ditches, but actually sealed beneath that. And the position of this hedge bank has probably prevented plough damage to what we now can see as either being late Neolithic or perhaps early Bronze Age pits. We've got either grooved ware, perhaps some Neolithic grooved ware pottery from one of those. And yesterday, one of our volunteers was finding carbonised hazelnut shells. So we're getting some environmental information about the diet contemporary with the use of this prehistoric ceramic.
I suppose it's a very special place here with a vantage point over the valley and the river and the crossing points and so on, so it would always have been special?
We'd have thought a hilltop, a prominent ridge. We were sat at the narrowest point of a loop in the Tamar with extensive views to the north, the south. During prehistory it's perhaps going to have a ritual significance. Perhaps we might find there are evidence of barrows which are now completely ploughed away, maybe habitation as well. But then strategically for the military it's at a neck of land, so they're defending a neck. They're protected by the river on three sides, and we know that big ocean going ships can actually get up as far, so it's at the navigable head, lowest bridging point. So strategically it's perfect.
You've had volunteers here for nearly 2 weeks now.
Absolutely.
Two lots of volunteers.
Yeah.
How's it been working with complete amateurs? Has it been fine?
Well, I think from start to finish, I'd now not call them complete amateurs. They've all picked it up very well. Everybody has come with enthusiasm and the care that is required to do justice to this. Is what is nationally important archaeology, and from the three of us who are here as archaeologists, we found it very nice at the end of each day to be thanked for giving people an opportunity. And you know, in the everyday course of our jobs that doesn't always happen, so for us it's been very rewarding. But I think everybody who's been here has seen a different side to archaeology beyond the 3 days of time team. Okay, we're only here for 2 weeks. It's the full process that I think people are remarking on.
So what's next for this site, which you're clearly addicted to?
Yeah, I mean, so this is the 4th year. We founded in 2007 and have done 4 years of work including this. So it'd be nice to move forward, do more survey work, get an idea of the broader setting. After the experience of the community programme this time is actually to push forward with, if we have more survey work done or excavation, is to follow this as a format. It's worked very well. A lot of the process involves simply bulk removal of fills.
Yes.
We've got a ditch here over here that's like nearly 2.5 metres deep. That's a lot of cubic metres of soil. You need manpower, and you know, the volunteers provide that in spades. So.
Good.
Analysis of the excavation results over the last year has revealed and confirmed more about the development of the landscape here.
You see essentially the geophysical survey plot composed lots of dark lines and light areas. All of these lines, the dark lines, represent ditches. Obviously these are substantial ditches that are the defensive ones associated with the fort, but you see all these faint traces within. Now they're the barrack blocks that were oriented north-south, each having probably 50 soldiers in it. We excavated a barrack block in the cemetery actually, and we actually found a pit in there that was heavily stained yellow with lots of iron oxide in it, and it's actually probably a urine pit, and these are cavalry barracks. You'll note that they're on the western side of the fort. This is the front of the fort, so you've got your cavalry positioned facing the enemy, so to speak, for rapid deployment out of that western gate. The very closely spaced dark lines here, they're foundation trenches, post trenches, very closely spaced because they take a huge amount of weight. This is actually the position of the fort's granaries. And if you can imagine that this fort probably housed 500 men, this is going to store a lot of grain. It's probably one of the most important aspects here. I brought these two things up here, Sam, because they really kind of demonstrate the difference in the sort of activity we've got here on Churchill. Now, as we know, there's a significant Roman fort up here. This is some of the pottery that really characterises that Roman occupation. This is Samian pottery. This is from the south of France, southern Gaul as it was then, and you can just see how fine this is and how hard fired, the slip that's applied after throwing really gives this sort of fairly glossy red finish, but the level of decoration is really significant. This is just one form of pottery that's sort of here associated with the Roman presence, and we've got other ceramics that are coming from the continent. We've got Spanish amphora bringing oil to the army here. This is probably all coming up the Tamar. This actually goes back quite a lot further in time. And what we're looking at here is probably late Neolithic grooveware. This is about between 2,500 and 3,000 BC, so this is nearly 5,000 years old. So you see the difference in quality between industries that are operating perhaps 3,000 years apart. But still, someone's taken the effort to decorate this quite well, really. But these 7 small fragments came from a single pit that was located just behind us, about 20 metres away. We didn't really anticipate there being any sort of evidence of this period of activity here, and we're still awaiting some radiocarbon dates for there was burnt hazelnut shell associated with these. So obviously that's reflecting probably hazel, an older Carr woodland around the marsh there, down by the Tamar. But we're still awaiting those dates, but it will probably tell us that this is about right, 2,500 to 3,000 BC.
The dig in October was a highly successful community experience. It has added to the archaeological record and our understanding of the development of the Tamar Valley landscape. The digs confirmed the presence of an earlier Roman marching camp and a later permanent timber fort. They presented new research potential into smelting and metalworking. The site is of high national archaeological significance, although to the casual observer there is nothing to suggest that a Roman army once lived here.
Hello, my name's Emma.
I'm Dorothy Kirk.
Hello, I'm Sharon.
I'm Simon Bates.
I'm an undergraduate in archaeology from Exeter University.
I live in Gunnyslade, just down the road.
I'm a retired teacher from Saltash.
I work for the Tamar Valley Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty as the Cornwall Project Officer.
As an amateur archaeologist, it's really great to be able to come on a local dig.
I'm a parish councillor and have always been in love with the Tamar Valley.
I came on the dig because I've watched Time Team and I wanted to see what it was like. I've had no prior experience or interest in archaeology, but it was the most fascinating week to see history in the landscape suddenly coming to life.
When we were here on the dig, myself and another lady, Sharon, we were in a small trench and we were really thrilled to find the edge of something which turned out to be a furnace pit.
The emphasis on the mining heritage of the valley has supplanted an awareness of the past, going way back into the past, and yet we're surrounded by vestiges of ancient history. We've got barrows and prehistoric remains that have never even been investigated.
Ellen and I dug an amazing trench that ended up with a sort of furnace at the bottom of it. Lots of dirty, wet carbon and little lumps of iron that had been smelted. And I learned on the week that nobody ever says, hooray, this is medieval, or hooray, this is Roman, until they really know. So I still don't know the date of our furnace. They're waiting on carbon dating, but it could be pre-Roman or it could be as late as Civil War. We're hoping it's medieval.
Coming down to the archaeological dig was superb. I remember the first job I always wanted to do was an archaeologist, and so to be part of a Roman fort excavation was pretty exciting, as you can imagine. And the team sort of took it in turns to sort of be with the volunteers and help with the dig and fuel them up with drinks and food and that sort of thing.
Chris Smart, of course, was on site to give us advice and help, and we were just thrilled to have been able to take part.
I can remember very well on a January evening as dusk fell, rushing into that field and staring with awe at perfect Roman ramparts. An incredible discovery, and yet really not surprising, since on Ptolemy's map of Europe it's clearly marked Tamaris, which, as far as my Latin remains, tells me that it means of the Tamar.
It was enormously exciting to turn up with my brand new trowel and be told, here you are, scrape away at the stones. So Ellen and I picked very gently at what looked like a path of stones, and then along came the experts and said, yes, yes, and got their trowels in and dug out about 6 inches, just with gay abandon, so it would seem. But as the week progressed, our eyes got better at picking out what was important and what wasn't, and we were allowed to excavate the stones revetting the furnace area. So that was really exciting, getting to some proper archaeology.
I think the most exciting bit for me, well, there were 2 exciting bits, because the volunteers themselves were really passionate about what they were doing. There was one chap in particular that had taken a whole week off work. He was building his son's house, and his son had said, go, because you've always wanted to do this. And so talking to him was just fantastic. He was really fired up, and whilst I was with him, he found a bit of Roman pottery, some Samian ware.
Part of the whole thing was being with other people of like mind and like enthusiasm. It was absolutely great for a whole week to be with people who were so enthusiastic you didn't have to hide your own.
But actually the best memory I have of the whole week is standing in the trench with the Roman fort and looking around and realising the river surrounded us on 3 sides. You could see for miles in all directions. What a perfect location for a defensive place. And I didn't know there were Romans here until I came up here and stood in the fort. And then to think about how the land had been used over the next centuries and centuries, through to medieval, through the farming areas, through into the 17th, 18th century industrial times. It was a stunning revelation of history in action, seen through the layers of the earth. And if you get the opportunity, I recommend it.
The other exciting bit was being on the site when the Roman mortaria was dug up, this sort of huge mortar and pestle, and there was a real sort of frisson of excitement as that came to the surface. And to think that it was the first time that that piece of pottery had been exposed for about 2,000 years was, well, I was shaking, you know, actually touching this thing. And I suppose that's part of the magic, isn't it, of archaeology?